discussions, interactions, reaching to one venue itself gets tough because you have to cross through a lot of people who would be meeting you after a long time. But thank you so much for joining in. We have had these conversations started on day one itself, which was on this pertinent theme of API security. And this time, it's more like an open house where we would like to have more discussions with you. Some context setting already been done with a few of you. Many of you are new to this discussion, at least with this team right now. But we'll have this venue as one, I would call it a boiling pot, where all of your thoughts can come together. Again, you all represent diverse industries. So this interaction is going to be important. Few of the other folks are also joining in. They will represent different sectors. So we'll try and integrate their thoughts all through this tenure. So for the next 1 hour, we will have our colleagues from Akamai also having these discussions started. So would you like to try that, Amir? You can start with your introduction. And then how do we want to do it? Do we want to do a quick introduction, or shall we start with inputs being added as part of your introduction itself? Two ways. Because if we do the role of mic, then it will take a little bit of extra time, I feel. But when you have a thought, it's better that you start with your introduction, and then we can do it a lot more seamlessly. Yes.
What we had thought. Hi, Deepa Parikh here from Akamai. So I had the solutions engineering team for Akamai in India. Very excited to have all of you here. I know you're learning a lot through these 3 days. So thank you for taking time to be with us. What Amin and I have discussed is we'll basically give a little bit of an intro where our thoughts are on with DPDP, API security, what are the attacks and data breaches. And as your intro, we would love for you to share some thoughts on a question that I will put out there, if that works for everybody. Yeah? Okay, cool. Amir, you want to introduce yourself and then I can go.
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Amir Ahmed. I have about 15 years of experience. I work with Cisco and now with Akamai. I'm the senior solutions engineer. So that's a bit about me.
Great. So a little bit more about me. I've been with Akamai for a long time now, 14 years. Been in different customer facing roles. This is what gives me energy, learning from you all, sharing with you what Akamai is innovating, what we're doing for our customers. We have our sales leaders also over here. So we'll all be here to engage with you, answer any questions over here. Just to talk like a second about Akamai is not, we will do more deep dive into Akamai introduction later. But what we are is we are one of the largest platform for security and delivery across the world. How many of you know Akamai? Wonderful. So I don't need to tell you too much more. We are, of course, while we've been growing our delivery business, delivering more than 50% of the enterprise traffic for large enterprises like you all across the globe, we've also been focusing a lot on protecting against different kinds of attacks, and those keep evolving as we know every year, right? There's a new attack, there's a new vector, there's a new way to have protections. So that's where we are evolving as a cybersecurity leader. To add to our portfolio now, we have a connected cloud as well. So we've been the leaders of distribution. So we figured, why don't we have a distributed cloud as well? But without going into the pitching and wearing my pre-sales hat, I think today is more a industry interaction to learn from you all. So DPDP is top of mind for everyone, right? I'm sure you've heard various themes across the whole AISS event about why data privacy is so important, why data breaches are such a big deal, why the fines are quite staggering, right, when you look at what is coming up. So along those lines, we've seen that the whole digital transformation is what is causing this, right? COVID only gave a boost. We are a mobile first country. Everybody's on apps, everybody's on API, everybody's on mobiles, right? So when we look at APIs evolving and growing so much, what they're accessing is ultimately data, right? Whether you're doing a UPI transaction, you're calling a cab, or you're booking a flight online, it's all these APIs for B2B, B2C that you're engaging with. So keeping that in mind, would love to hear from each of you, your introduction. What are your thoughts on the DPDP Act and regulations? How does it affect you as an industry? And anything on top of mind for you with respect to security and how you're leveraging APIs to deal with your ecosystem. So with that, we'll hand it over to you all, and then we'll jump into a few things we want to add to that.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Jagdish here from ICICI Bank. As a banking company, we are dealing with many PII data. So DPDP Act, as you said, is very important for us as well. So we have API gateways as well for protecting us. But in addition to that, we want to understand more about API security we want to understand what can be benefits of the additional benefits that API security Akamai is providing in addition to the gateways. So
Sure.
yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Vishal Saraswat from ICC Bank. I'm taking care of internal audit department, information security department. So for DPD, is like if you see GDPR Act. In my personal view, some of the clauses is very difficult to implement. Like right to erase, the customer can ask for deletion of their records. Similar clauses are there in this one also, but how to implement this type of clauses, I want to understand in India.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Virendra Singh, and I am CISO for Presta Gas Limited. So, as DPDP Act already introduced last year, so as as we are already dealing in Delhi NCR region and another 4 states, nearby states, so we have huge customer data as well. So definitely we are doing something for protection of data, but needs more, and we want to listen from you and industry experts how they are doing. So thank you.
I'm Bhavesh and I'm CISO and DPU at SK Finance. And I'm here to understand more about your API security service.
Sure.
Yeah, hi, this is Kapil Madan from Max Healthcare Group. I'm already using API security with Akamai.
Thanks, Kapil. Okay.
Hi, Marinder Bharadwaj, representing Providence Healthcare. We are focused on going ahead. I think it's a hospital chain with 50 hospitals and 1,500 clinics out there in US. We have a backend center out here in Hyderabad. When you look at this complicated area, I think all that you basically mentioned, everyone mentions, is applicable to us. Would be interested in hearing what basically happens. We are one of the Akamai's customers as well, but might not be on the list in India.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, Benny Penn from Isologic. As an API provider, we would like to hear what kind of threats our clients may have by using our API and what we should be looking out for.
Wonderful.
Yeah, hi. Chandra Prakash from Isologic. I would like to understand how do you maintain the API security where continuous integration happens. It is also one of the challenges where every organization does the continuous implementation, and at the same time, how we can monitor and make sure the APIs endpoints are secure.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shalin Khetarpal. I represent BSS Rajdhani Power. I'm CISO for BSS Rajdhani Power. It's a power utility company. The idea is to understand how does Akamai help to navigate and secure the APIs. Thank you.
Thanks. And while you all are going through this, and if there's anything specific for the regulatory part for your industry, please add that. I know we've talked about healthcare, banking, but would love to hear from you all as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Ketan Patel, part of Bank of India Information Security. I want to understand more on Akamai API security.
Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Lohit. I manage the cybersecurity operations for Federal Bank. I'm more interested on the API security on the monitoring part.
The monitoring part. Sure.
Yeah, I'm Vishnu from Federal Bank. I'm also part of the cybersecurity team. So yeah, I'm interested to understand how can we leverage the API security and how we can increase our monitoring stage on that.
Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Divya from IKEA India, and as we are from retail industry and we are looking forward to the DPDP Act. It's a very good news that India is coming up with some law. Every time we say we don't have anything when it comes to regulations. So looking forward to the new rules. We are already starting and started to discover where we sit when it comes to the laws and regulations. When it comes to Akamai, we are already using in our environment. However, I'm still looking for what are the hidden APIs when it comes to third party and how we can secure it.
Sure.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nitish Sharma. I'm from Certain. So,
Yeah, so you might all be aware of certain. So we are basically handling cyber security incidents happening in India. So the main reason for us to be here is to understand that what difficulties these organizations are facing for securing their APIs and while monitoring attacks related to their APIs. Because in the recent times we have observed that these attacks related to API have surged recently, and the main gaps which we are observing is that first is the discovery part, which your team has already highlighted. Organizations are not aware how many APIs are there in their network, and we also want to understand whether there are any tools available in the market using which these organizations can just run that tool and can understand what vulnerabilities are there in their APIs, and whether there are any tools for monitoring such APIs, tools which can detect the live attacks which are happening on the API. So yeah, so that's the main agenda for us to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Abhishek Daga from All India Limited, currently involved with the CISO office. The main reason for attending this program is to understand how Akamai can help us get more insights into our APIs currently in existing network, and the context of DPDP, how Akamai can provide those also.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Amir. I'm part of Nestle India. We're already customers for Akamai, and then we're in process of migrating everything to Akamai right now. So I would really love to learn more about Akamai right now.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Just a quick input. Hi, Atul this side. Myself working as a Chief Information Security Officer in Bank of Maharashtra.
Thank you.
This is Amit Gupta. I'm representing SCL Tech, part of CISO office and managing strategy for cybersecurity. So one of the challenge we are seeing is with the API security, user experience that does not go in hand. So want to understand like how Akamai can make it better.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon. Myself Vivek Sankar. I'm Chief IT Security Officer for Max Life Insurance. I'm looking for key features of API security also. And another things I want to know how to maintain balance between the business and security. Because sometimes what you face due to this security constraint on API, what controls we have implemented, a lot of business are getting dropped. How to achieve the business with maintaining security also.
Sure. We'll talk about the balance. It's a tough one.
Hello, my name is Abhishek Saxena. I'm working as an SAVP in Excel Services, and I'm looking after the application infrastructure and offensive security. So we are having the API security solutions already in place. So I think the main thing that I want to know from an internal APIs which are actually working in, what is the discovery method for the internal API and how we can actually protect them, and about the monitoring also, integration with the SIM and all those. Looking forward for that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Saurabh Singh, part of Excel Service. I do take care of GRC and certification portfolio. However, the current focus is AI-led initiatives and internal API with respect to AI models or solutions in life cycle, how we can secure APIs. So that is the main focus for today.
Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Sandeep Jashal and I'm from National Slow Bank, and we are already using Akamai from long time, but we are not utilizing capabilities of API security. So here we want to explore how this can help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jashant Singh from National Australian Bank, working as a security architect. Since yesterday, almost 3 days, I'm hearing a lot of buzzwords like AI and DPDP. I would like to understand how DPDP will impact Indian companies in future, because there is a lot of similarity between GDPR and DPDP, and I know that it is very difficult to adhere all sort of things. So how difficult it would be for Indian companies, and how Akamai would be able to help to comply with all those things. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Homo Sabir, CISO from Bank. So, we all know that data security is a big challenge for all of us. So, I'm also interested in looking forward
how you going to help us in defining the fine balance while we implement the APIs, and what are the monitoring that we can have on regular basis, and it's a regular review, because what we have felt that once the APIs are implemented, so really the team will go back and then recheck what exactly is happening with APIs. That is where I would expect you guys to at least throw some light on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Surendra Nimani from Flipkart Group. Maybe I would like to know more about three aspects. How you will be able to give a kind of much more broader view on how we can do continuous monitoring on APIs, and what strategies we can implement for kind of runtime protection and continuous testing on APIs. And is there any way that we can do kind of monitoring on the third party API integration touch points to see if there is any data going out using third party integration touch points? I think mainly we would like to focus on these three aspects.
Thanks. We'll be covering that.
Hi, Avanyu this side from ICICI Bank. So more on the point of DPDA Act. So I would like to understand what all technical controls that you people are going to cover to comply with DPDA, include for APIs especially. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Nishan from ICICI. Like to understand how does the Akamai solution on API security help me comply with the DPDP Act? I mean, how do you map the requirements of DPDP with the API, whatever you have, and how does it ensure compliance for me? I mean, how effective is it? And that's the thing, if because from a bank perspective, we need to comply with DPDP, and like to see how my technology solutions help me comply with it.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sandeep Burma this side from ICICI. I'm looking forward, though DPDP Act has come now, but data protection and data security was always a concern from the banking industry side. So, though we are talking about the APIs, but these APIs sometimes, which we are exposed to the customers, and there are some which we are consuming also. So, there is a movement of data both in and out. So whether there are security solutions which will be able to identify and map this PI data and differentiate between which are the APIs which are critical from the perspective of personal data, and which are the APIs which are normal in nature. So that is kind of segregation, whether it is feasible to have a control around it and any security solution which can help us in identifying and then having a mechanism to prevent on a continuous monitoring basis also. So that is what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rajinder from Marvel Semiconductor. Our use case in DPDP is more employee data, and especially with the insurance or benefits vendors and third parties. So we're not the API host; we are more of a consumer of the API, and I want to learn what can be done in terms of that. Today, when we hook those networks or data, it's more about the security standard that we have dictated with them. But over the period of time, how they are kind of keeping that up to date, more responsibilities on their end, but we cannot deny that we are not responsible as well. So I want to learn that.
Thanks. Did we miss anyone before we add a little bit more?
The last one maybe. So, hi, I'm Vikas. I'm leading the cyber controls for Moody's Corporation globally, and the topic for today definitely is a good cross point and intersection between, API security and data. So definitely kind of, keen on knowing a little more about, how you guys think about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Vijay Kumar. I'm the CISO for NSE Clearing Limited. We are one of your customers for quite a long time. Most of the DPDP topics and API topics are already covered. That's fine.
Hopefully you learned something new today. Thank you. Okay. So with that, we'll just add a little bit what Amir and I have. Again, like we spoke earlier, this is an interactive conversation. We don't have all the answers, but we're seeing a lot of trends and new attacks emerge, which we'll talk about. So just jumping into the first part, right? I heard a lot of common theme. The first one was about discovery, right? How do you continuously discover what are my APIs? With the digital transformation, we all know APIs are growing like crazy. You'll have some gateway, some load balancer, some firewall managing all of this, right? But how do you continuously monitor? So we give the analogy of when you're driving on a highway, the toll booth is just one checkpoint. That's not enough when you're using APIs that are sending your data out with every request, right? So the whole point is, how do you have like your cameras that are constantly checking, are you speeding along the way, right? So that's the whole idea with APIs, where traditional models don't work, right? And we'll talk about that when we get a little bit into the protection and mitigation part. But the first most critical part is discovery. So like you said, you may have different models. You have east-west traffic going in, sharing your APIs for your B2B traffic. Within your data center, you may have a lot of apps where you have cross communication going on. You may have a lot of B2C, which is on the internet, you're sharing data with your third parties, with your customers. So all of that. So how do you continuously know with your partners, with your customers, with your employees, where are all the different integration points? And that whole concept of shadow APIs, zombie APIs, that comes up, right? Like APIs, the whole reason it's ballooned so much in the modern architectures is where it's very easy to spin it up, right? You just got some functionality. You don't have to set up a different monolithic architecture. How do you just open this up and set functionality very quickly? But the con of that is people, developers just spin these up and you have no idea which version or 50th version of some API is lingering anywhere, or there's a developer API, there's a UAT API that's exposed and you have no idea. So the first challenge, I think we all agree, is discovery. And I think some people really highlighted it very well, that you need continuous discovery. It's not a one time you did it, okay, you discovered, you got all the Swagger file, you can download it and be sure that this is my API ecosystem, there's going to be nothing after this, right? So that's where the continuous discovery is really important.
And to add on to Deepa's point, right? Essentially, what we're trying to solve with the this approach is to get all your APIs in a single pane of glass. So it's about like you have hundreds of disjointed solutions. API traffic is flowing across all of them. How do you get one solution, one dashboard? Pretty much you get all of that inventory in one place. So for you to be able to actually take an informed decision, both from a security viewpoint and how do you want to really deal with those.
Exactly. So just building on where is your data, right? So while we talk about the DPDP Act, again, a lot of it is about where is your data, what is private data, and who is accessing it. So discovery solves that problem for you, right? And this, we'll not go into this too much in detail right now, but the idea is that there are many data sources, right? You need to look at your API gateways, your load balancers, your cloud providers, your application logs, everything together needs to be monitored to get a sense of how are your APIs sharing data and is there any abuse happening over there. So that's where it's important to have a very wide view across the API ecosystem. So once we look into the discovery, and of course we'll go a little bit into our tool, but I just want to get some generic trends that what are the few aspects to focus on before we get into how do we solve it. So when we look at discovery, the next thing then comes classification. Now, there is so much data out there. There are so much content. How do you figure out? And DPDP talks a lot about how do you classify that, right? What is public data? What is private data? What is sensitive data? What is classified data? So I think that's a very important per industry. It'll be different. Banking will be different. Insurance will be different. Health will be different, where you need to understand that which part of it really needs protection. You can't turn it on for everybody. Then there's, of course, a experience impact, right? Someone talked about that. How do I have my security controls, but not impact the experience of my end users? You don't want to slow that down. So when we look at classification, these are the different things you need to look about, whether it is GDPR, PCI DSS, or DPDP. We're looking at what is PII, what is forbidden, what are the fields that I need to protect, and the discovery helps you get into that, right? We start giving you some insights on these are the fields that you need to watch out for. You can add your own custom fields based on your industry, but we use a lot of AI/ML models to figure out how can we use clustering, how can we use these tools to very quickly figure out and discover what are the different classifications that can be provided. These fields could be anything, right? So just some examples here. It could be patient ID, gender, email, address, credit card, Aadhaar, PAN, what have you, right? So there could be different based on an industry, what is okay for you to share, what is not okay for you to share, right? So that's the second part.
Right, and just to add on this point, right, sometimes you may expect certain data to be, say, part of the request field, but not as part of the response. So when you actually go through this, it also helps you to understand that, am I actually expecting, what you, as a security person, you expect? For example, user ID in a request makes sense, but if your servers are actually responding back with user IDs and just sharing a lot of information where you don't typically expect, the servers to respond back with that. You also have visibility where you can actually easily bifurcate how does your request look like, how does your response looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Abhin. Next one. So again, continuing on to the theme of classification, right? So Amit talked about the whole request response part. Now, the big thing about APIs is it's just so easy to predict, right? So when your developers write a particular logic, it is very easy to predict that, oh, this token I just need to increment in a certain way. And that's how a lot of these big breaches have happened, right? When you look at a large cap aggregator or any of these major ones that are happening last few years, it's just the logic that is so easy to predict. And there are a lot of AI tools like dark LLMs and ROM GPT where it can actually do very quick reconnaissance and understand, oh, this is the pattern of APIs for this organization, and how can I quickly predict what's the next field, and just figure out there is a simple tokenization methodology that I can use to then create attack traffic. So that's why it's become very important to understand that what are these different attacks coming in, and authentication is easy, right? Okay, you got a valid token, you started, but are you authorized to read the other data? That becomes very important.
Right, and just to add to his point, right, you will also see that in a lot of cases, you have, the reason it also becomes a lot easier to abuse APIs because a lot of the products have very, very well written and detailed API documentation. So if somebody is actually trying to exploit, they already have solid foundation of how your API system, ecosystem looks like, what kind of APIs are you using, and some of you may have already made that as a public, knowledge because you want your partners to use your APIs to do certain functionality and things like that. So that's why if we look at the trends, sometimes a lot of the breaches which have recently happened, that people have very clearly been able to do it, and there are some of the bug bounty hunters, right? They say that we were able to do it because a lot of the information was already out there.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. And if you look at some of these categories, right? So, sorry, it does talk about, again, the whole shadow API, right? The APIs that you don't know which are exposed. So something that's not used for many days. IDOR is, how many of you heard of OAS top 10 for APIs? Right? So now we had your application layer attacks. Now we've come up with specific OAS top 10 for APIs. And of course, now there's OAS top 10 for LLMs also. So as you see these attacks evolve, it tells you that do I have access to this resource? So IDOR is that, right? Where you get access to a resource that you've known you're not supposed to have access to or get exposed. So these are the kind of things you will look at. What is not used? Why are there so many logins? Maybe someone's logging from my machine. I'm logging in from Mumbai right now, and at the same time, someone in 3 minutes is logging from Delhi. So that's impossible time travel, right? So can it really be possible? But you can't figure this out with a signature-based system where there is no signature here. This is how my usual pattern is, and when my behavior changes, then I look at, oh, why is this an abnormal pattern?
Right. So sometimes what we see, right, let's say a developer created version 1, there was, they launched that, it was working great. Then they realized that there was some security flaws in it. They launched version 2 and things were fixed. But the problem that we often see is that they forgot to deprecate version 1. And that's where, for example, if you look at the ones which are unused, becomes really important because you might want to ask yourself a question that, hey, if there is an API in my ecosystem which no one is using for last 60 days, is it really important? Do I really want to make sure that it even exists? And if not, should we talk to devs and make sure that this is taken off? So perhaps as we talked about data discovery and data classification, so we have some set of curated questions which when we often talk to customers, these are the most typical questions we get, right? So maybe one question I'll probably want to throw in front of you all just to get your thoughts, that how confident are you of your API security inventory, and what challenges do you face while maintaining with the pace of innovation and development? Because these two things are very complex yet interlinked. So maybe you want to get your thoughts around it.
Any of you, whoever wants to add.
And again, as we know now, your introductions, you don't have to necessarily feel obliged to just answer, one by one. But if there is something you want to share, please do. So, in API security, one
biggest challenge, couple of quarters back we faced that we identified many unused API that is running in our environment. So we had to derive certain mechanism and implemented some tool to identify like if any API is being used for any kind of testing, that's a be removed off because that can be a big vulnerability in the organization.
Just to answer you, right? When we talk about the we'll come to the demo part of it, and when we go to the slide demo, right, you'll see that we'll explain to you how does the solution actually takes care of that problem, and how is that you can leverage it to solve the problem that you exactly want.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to share my experience.
Please.
I deployed this API security. So when I went for the inventory, I went to the application head. I asked how many API do we have. He answered approximate 250. Then I went to the ground team developers. They told maximum 500. When I deployed the solution, I got 2,700 APIs. This is the big gap.
Right. And you know, I mean, we've been working with the couple for quite a time, and I want to again, I feel he's the visionary in that sense that he was first to see the value in the solution, and long before, like, you know, many people have been talking about it. Max Healthcare has already deployed it. So glad that, you know, you actually when you deploy the solution, you realize that in your sense that this is not just theory, but this is an actual problem for all of us, that there is just no inventory. And no matter how confidently the devs or people say that they may really know the landscape, that they actually don't. So thanks for just confirming that.
One question. There could be some legacy applications and some dormant data. Is it possible which may not be in use? Maybe, you know, like we have some enforcement data which might be used in case, you know, maybe some old consumers or something. So is it possible to dormant those?